And great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines, and pestilences, and fearful sights. And ye shall hear of wars, and rumours of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
U.S. officials tell CNN that intelligence agencies are watching significant new North Korean military steps that increase the threat to the U.S. and its allies and decrease the early warning time in the event of an attack.
They have been exceedingly active in demonstrating capability.
The latest intelligence analysis concludes North Korea is now aggressively testing medium and long-range missiles, warheads, and nuclear devices, and it no longer cares if the world sees its test failures.
When you have this many tests, you're eventually going to get it right. That's what concerns me.
Kim Jong-un is trying to demonstrate to the world that he has capability, both in terms of the nuclear test as well as ballistic missile.
New satellite images reveal activity at North Korea's nuclear test site. A canopy now blocks views from spy satellites. Road mobile missiles, difficult to track, have been tested, as have intercontinental missiles that could reach Alaska. The U.S. also now assumes North Korea has a rudimentary, miniaturized nuclear warhead essential for a nuclear attack.
As soon as they have one test that they could classify as an extreme success, then we're talking a whole different ballgame in their potential to threaten.
Meanwhile, the highest level diplomatic defection ever from Kim Jong-un's North Korean regime.
Socialism is not something in the air.
North Korea's deputy ambassador to the UK defecting and reaching safety in South Korea. Last year, the ambassador appeared loyal.
If you read our papers and the magazines and the photos, you can see how socialism is carried on and put into practice.
A South Korean government spokesman says the ambassador wanted out.
I am aware that he defected due to his yearning for liberal democracy.
And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines, and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold.
From the world headquarters of Fox News, it's The Kelly File with Megyn Kelly.
A head-turning story out of the State University of New York at Binghamton tonight. Resident advisors there being offered an optional training course called Stop White People 2K16. Supposedly this is diversity training, but some say it's actually racist. Ben Shapiro joins me now, an attorney and editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire, which broke this story. Ben, good to see you. What's this about?
So basically, there was a resident assistant program, a training program. 40 to 50 RAs attended it, and the goal was to teach all of these RAs how to deal with white privilege and all of the racism inherent on the campus, to explain that reverse racism didn't really exist, and to correct the misconceptions of all of what they called the undereducated people who think things like white privilege is a buzzword for leftism, and that people should actually be treated equally without regard to their race. So this is just plain leftist politics under the guise of re-education by a bunch of residence assistants. The university says, of course, that they had nothing to do with the content, but they assured everybody that retroactively there was nothing really objectionable. They were just using the term "stop white people" facetiously. It was a joke. Stop. I mean, can you imagine if there was a program like "Stop Black People"? The reaction that we'd get at a state, at a publicly funded university? Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is absurd, of course. I mean, if you even try to give a lecture sponsored by a group on campus that has anything to do with race, there's a good shot that you'll be protested and shut down. Yeah, as you know, firsthand. Yeah, exactly. They can actually run a program called Stop White People 2K16, and it's totally fine, neglecting, of course, the fact that most of the taxpayers in the state of New York are white and therefore subsidizing their education. Presumably most of the people giving the grants to the State University of New York are white. But this is what the student says. The student group says, this is Vice President for Student Affairs, says, look, it wasn't anti-white. We're trying to improve people's ability to handle conflicts around the issues of diversity and race, and it was very respectful. And, you know, only a couple people complained. Oh, to whom? Respectful to whom? Again, as you say, I mean, you title this thing Stop Black People, and the entire country shuts down. President Obama sends the DOJ to investigate. You call it Stop White People, and that's just another way of expressing yourself. It's just a way of bringing up conflict. I mean, listen, this is the sort of intellectual rigor that I would expect from the Harvard of Binghamton, but nonetheless, it's not exactly, I think, an even playing field with regard to white and black at these state universities. Right, they're saying only a couple people, you know, had, quote, mixed reaction, but what about those who didn't feel comfortable saying, hey, because they're worried they're going to be called a racist if they say, I don't really like this, it's making me feel uncomfortable. Ben, great to see you. We'll continue to follow it. And we'll be right back.
And great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines, and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven.
The earthquake struck in the dead of night. There was no time to react. At 6.2 magnitude, it was powerful enough to jolt people awake 100 miles away in Rome. In this mountainous central region of Italy, the earthquake hit several towns. But here in Amatrice, the devastation was worst. Ancient buildings and churches destroyed, cars crushed. The town center, now a pile of rubble, rocks and twisted metal blocking these once idyllic streets. Even part of the hospital, now gone. There are some 70 people under the rubble, this firefighter says. Emergency workers and residents use shovels, bulldozers, even bare hands to try to rescue those trapped beneath the rubble of their destroyed homes. We need chainsaws, says this firefighter. We need everything. Some didn't survive. Others are still missing. Those who escaped unharmed in shock and disbelief. The whole ceiling fell on my head, the survivor says. I just managed to put a pillow on my head, and I wasn't hit. I was lucky. It's a tragedy this country has known before. 8 years ago, a powerful quake in L'Aquila claimed more than 300 lives. That city remains a ghost town. In Rome this morning, Pope Francis prayed for the victims of today's tragedy. Hearing that there are children among the victims, he says, I am deeply saddened. The buildings may one day be rebuilt, but life here has been shattered.
Well, the mayor this morning saying this town, which survived 2 centuries, is now effectively gone. For pleading for rescue supplies, food, water, medicine, anything to help the people in this town. Matt, Savannah.
Lucy Kaffenup, we apologize for some of the difficulties in transmission there, but as you can imagine, it's a difficult time.
Yeah, it's hard times there for sure.
For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Let no man deceive you by any means, For that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines, and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. And ye shall hear of wars, and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
Welcome back. Breaking news now in our world lead. Confrontation on the high seas once again. U.S. officials telling CNN that the Navy fired 3 warning shots at an Iranian Revolutionary Guard patrol boat after it repeatedly harassed American vessels in the Persian Gulf. This coming just after 4 Iranian vessels conducted a high-speed intercept seen here of a U.S. destroyer. That's earlier this week. Let's get right to CNN's Barbara Starr. She's live at the Pentagon. Barbara, this seems to be an escalation from the Iranian side.
It does, Jim. You know, military tensions with Iran now rising to the point the U.S. Navy compelled to fire warning shots 1 day after the first high-risk encounter. All 4 boats you see here are Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps vessels approaching at a high speed and apparently on a collision course with a U.S. Navy destroyer in the Strait of Hormuz. This video shot from the USS Mitza. It warned the Iranians with horns and flares to back off.
Weapons uncovered.
But at least 2 of the Iranian boats kept approaching, coming within 300 yards. Forcing the Nitsa to alter course Tuesday, the Iranian boats finally turning away. By Wednesday, a significant rise in tensions. Revolutionary Guard Corps boats harassing and endangering U.S. Navy vessels 3 times in 24 hours, the most dangerous, resulting in the U.S. Navy firing warning shots at the Iranians.
They did feel compelled ultimately to fire 3 warning shots, and the reason for that is they had used they had taken steps already to try and de-escalate this situation.
It happened at the northern end of the Persian Gulf. An Iranian fast boat like this approached 2 U.S. Navy patrol craft, the USS Tempest and USS Squall. U.S. officials say the Squall, using its .50 caliber machine guns, fired 3 warning shots into the water at the Iranians. This after the Iranian boat had circled around the U.S. vessels, at one point coming within 200 yards. The U.S. Navy crews had fired warning flares. Eventually, the 2 sides had a short bridge-to-bridge conversation, but the warning shots fired when the Iranians still did not back away.
Therefore shall the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field, and with the fowls of heaven. Yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away.
Drastic measures are being taken in Montana tonight to stop a deadly invader that's killing thousands of fish. Officials have shut down nearly 200 miles of the popular Yellowstone River. As our Joe Fryer explains, that's a big deal for a state where recreation is a $6 billion a year industry.
It may look tranquil, this quiet ribbon of the Yellowstone River winding through Montana, but not to locals.
It's really unnerving, actually. You'd think there would be some peace to it, but there's not.
This, after all, is typically a fly fishing destination.
376.
But these days, the only activity comes from scientists combing a river that's littered with dying whitefish. The culprit, a parasite that causes a fatal kidney disease in fish.
I saw that nothing looked as it should, and I knew right away it was a significant infection.
State wildlife officials have now closed down a stretch of the river that's 180 miles long. No boating, no fishing, no rafting. The parasite won't hurt humans, but they want to make sure it doesn't spread to other streams or move south to Yellowstone National Park.
The research that's been done, it appears if fish can survive the initial onset of this disease, they'll develop resistance through time.
But the timing is horrible.
For fishing guides and people in the rafting business and people that make 100% of their living off the river, it's dramatic.
Just visit the Dan Bailey fly fishing shop in Livingston.
We should have so much noise in here. I mean, it's so quiet, it's scary.
You can hear the buzz of a fluorescent light in a store that's nearly as empty as the river.
I mean, last Friday was the day of the shutdown, and the next day our business was cut in half.
Now business is a fraction of that, and it's unclear how long the closure will last. A lonely river beneath a big sky. Joe Fryer, NBC News, Livingston, Montana.
It's a phenomenon the people who live here say they haven't seen in decades. Fish, hundreds of thousands of dead fish washing up along the creeks and beaches in Keensburg and neighboring communities. Here at the marina in Hazlitt, you could barely see the water. The surface is a blanket of dead fish. The fish began surfacing just days ago, first by the tens of thousands, and now, according to the Department of Environmental Protection, there are millions of them lining the beaches and waterways here in Keensburg. The largest portion of the die-off is being seen in this tidal creek off Raritan Bay. With the heat and so many dead fish, the worst part of it, say the residents?
Oh, the smell. The smell.
It smells. It's polluting the water. It smells.
Not happy. The smell is very disturbing. It's alarming.
The fish are identified as peanut bunker, which average 4 to 5 inches long. DEP investigators say they were likely fleeing from larger predators, including bluefish and skates. They became so cramped in the stagnant water, they depleted the dissolved oxygen in the water and suffocated. And along the sandy beaches, there are more of the tiny fish washing ashore, much to the distress of families enjoying a day's outing.
Because you walk down and then you don't really expect it. And then obviously with the kids, it kind of scares the kids.
It just makes the beach feel really unclean.
It's not a pretty sight, but in saying that, you know, one has to still appreciate the ambiance.
The township has begun a massive cleanup, removing these dead fish to the local landfill. But more keep pouring in with the tide. Helping with the cleanup are the birds, waiting for their next meal. The sentiments of the people living here with all of this can be summed up in one word offered by this 3-year-old girl.
Yuck. Louder.
Yuck.
Yuck indeed. Take my word for it, the stench here is quite foul. Cleanup at the marina is scheduled tomorrow as an environmentalist group comes in to test the oxygen levels.
For months, police in Baltimore have been conducting aerial surveillance over neighborhoods, a plane with high-tech cameras to investigate crimes. It was a closely guarded secret until now. Here's Chris Van Cleve.
CBSNews.com first reported about the camera technology last year when we visited the Persistent Surveillance Systems headquarters. From wide-angle cameras mounted on a small plane, the company is able to see roughly 32 square miles, transmitting the images live and instantly archiving them, allowing police to essentially rewind time. In June, that plane was flying over Baltimore, watching for signs of unrest the day Officer Caesar Goodson was found not guilty in Freddie Gray's death, a fact the police apparently did not publicly disclose until today.
The only people that should be concerned in the city of Baltimore are criminals.
Police spokesman TJ Smith defended the technology, which he says led to the arrest of this man, wanted for shooting 2 elderly people in February.
We're going to do whatever we can to go after those who choose to harm our city.
While the cameras are not high resolution, people and cars appear as dots that can be followed, allowing police to sync up cameras on the ground.
Do you really feel like it's spying?
It is spying.
Jay Stanley from the American Civil Liberties Union wants the program shut down.
I hate to use the term Big Brother, it's so overused, but this is kind of the definition of Big Brother. It's a big eye in the sky watching an entire city at once.
The system was originally developed for the military in Iraq to find people planting bombs. Maurice, police agencies in Pennsylvania, California, and Ohio have also tested this technology.
Chris Van Cleve in Washington.
And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. And ye shall hear of wars, and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
An explosion went off just moments ago at a military base outside of Chicago.
Peace and security.
Professor, it says here that the chip could trace the purchases of excessive weaponry and stopping terrorist attacks before they start.
Do not get that chip.
He who testifies to these things says, yes, I am coming quickly. Amen. Come, Lord Jesus. That means he can come back at any moment. He can come back right now.